Good evening, everybody.
I like your shoes, dude.
Appreciate it.
You always G'd up and fly, man.
I try to get the side from overseas.
Yeah, right.
You always G'd up in style, man. I tell you what, don't ever buy no damn buckle jeans.
Oh, boy, for real.
Anything keeps sliding down, man. Oh,
You
you would think was what?
yeah, for the price.
Yeah, like, dude, man, what's up with this? Like, keep sliding down my waist.
So you're getting me like from an angle? Is that what I'm seeing?
That's what. No, that's the actual hard copy,
Okay.
and then this is what is live. So you got all three good angles.
Okay.
So yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna hit start recording on this one. So we're here. We're here. We're gonna restart the clock. Okay. And we're ready to go. Oh crap! Hold on a second. All three shows have the same shirt. You're like, man, well, they air different times. Man, I'm glad you sang that song, man, because I was sure thinking about that song.
Beautiful girl.
Yeah. I've been my daughter be like, Dad, what are you doing? So in love with you. Wasn't that the song that you wrote because that girl broke up with you or something?
Yeah. I should have touched bases on that one. Well, we did because relationships and stuff.
Is that the one that took your guitar?
No. That was a chick that somebody told me not to mess with. And
Been down that road.
yeah.
He's actually done all your singles. He even did Colors of the World. I mean, I can't see the picture because the Wi-Fi is crazy, but he said, I went all the way back where he said, I just added Colors of the World. So that means he's added everything. See, I can't bring up any of the images
And I'm
because
thinking you will bring out.
WILBERNE.
Yeah, I have this one.
Okay.
You said you treat lunch today or tomorrow?
I said tomorrow. We got time to kill tomorrow. Got to go to the mall. Which mall would I be able to? Which mall do you think would be the best one to go to?
Right, Castle. I guess it's the only one up here.
Okay. Is Washington Square still open?
You don't want to go to that whole hood.
No, I mean that's the one where they've had a lot of shootings and trouble.
It's still open, but it's like locked in on.
Oh no, thank you.
Yeah, you don't want to go over there, dude. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Hi, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Crayton Show with my host, Yolanda M. Smith, the Branthropist. We're once again celebrating Black Music Month, and I am privileged to have coming through those doors the legend, the general, the master, the artist. The list goes on. The promoter, the entertainer, the new innovator, the talent researcher. The list goes on. Welcome to the studio my man, Sid, Uncle Jamz Johnson. Did I do it right?
Hello, everybody out there. Man, he gave me so many titles until I was like,
But
can I live up to that one?
you've already lived up to him.
Well, I don't know about a couple of them that you gave me. I'm not so sure about that. They're still works in progress, you know. But I'll own the good things, and I'll disown the bad things.
We're going to talk about the ones that you own, the one you disown, the what, the who, what, why, and how. So tell the viewers a little bit about you, because I mean, this episode is a little bit different. I'm not going to control the narrative, and the reason for that is pretty simple. I don't know all there is to know about you. Your bio was like, did you get my bio, Andre? Yeah, I got the book. So instead of me talking about the bio, I want to make this episode more about you telling us the history of music, your role in music, and then I will ask the questions as you take control of the Andre the Beast Crayton show.
Okay. I was told, and I have no memories of this, but I was told by some family members that I used to like Elvis Presley. I don't recall liking Elvis Presley at all.
You need to find out who that was that told you that.
And I don't want to own that, but I do know that I enjoyed the Beatles in 1964 when they were on the Ed Sullivan Show, and I feel like that was my official introduction into saying I definitely want to do something in music, because it was really fascinating to hear those guys from England be on the Ed Sullivan Show and have all those girls screaming and going crazy. And I thought, wow, what is this?
Tell the viewers about the Ed Sullivan Show briefly, because this is a whole new generation. I remember the Ed Sullivan Show, but they don't know what it would be.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you didn't get on the Ed Sullivan Show,
You wasn't nobody.
then you were not anybody.
Yeah.
And everybody was on the Ed Sullivan Show. And sometimes the Ed Sullivan Show was overbooked.
It was kind of like a star search before Star
Yes.
Search.
I remember the late, great, the Queen of Soul was booked on there, and they overbooked, and she got bumped, and she left out of the studio crying. She was only like 18 years old when she got her major label record deal, and they put her on the show. And according to the story that Aretha told, she said they told her, could you change gowns? That first one is a little too low cut, showing too much cleavage. So she said luckily she had another gown and changed. Then the next thing she heard on the voice coming over the intercom back in the dressing room, we're sorry, Miss Franklin, we've overbooked tonight, so we will not have you on the show. And she said she left out crying.
Man.
So that's how significant the Ed Sullivan Show was.
Right.
And she said many years later she got a correspondence in the mail talking about her check, and she thought, well, I didn't even appear on the show, but I sure will take the check.
Who's going to turn down some money?
Yeah, right, exactly. And I remember that show, and I remember watching that show all the time. I saw James Brown on there. I saw the Temptations on there. So for me, it
And
wasn't...
you know what? It was the first time I saw the Jackson 5.
Okay. And
Yeah.
it wasn't just about the impact that the Beatles had. It was the fact that being able to see that miscegenation of all those different genres of music, and that had a great impact on me. I grew up in a typical black household in Indianapolis over by Crown Hill Cemetery on Boulevard Place.
Okay.
And in my household, there was Mahalia Jackson playing on the record player. For you young people who don't know what a record player is, that's what we had back in those
Wax.
days. Yeah, there was, like I said, Mahalia Jackson, there was Dinah Washington, there was Lou Rawls, there was B.B. King, there was Bobby Blue Bland, there was Cannonball Adderley, Shirley Scott, Wes Montgomery, all of these kind of things in gospel, blues, R&B, and jazz played in my household. I tested very high, and they came to my home to discuss with my family what high school I should go to,
Right.
whether I should go to Brebeuf, College Preparatory High School, and now they had turned Shortridge High School into a college preparatory high school. It was actually walking distance for me And I didn't like the concept of going to Brebeuf because they had to wear uniforms.
Right.
And I was hoping that my mom and everybody wouldn't make me go there.
What's your thing with uniforms?
I just thought that was, I didn't really want to do the uniforms.
Okay.
So then they chose Shortridge. And I got accepted into Shortridge because I tested so high, and it was a college preparatory high school. They were a little bit afraid of me because, I'm not trying to toot my horn, but I tested as having a super genius IQ.
And you don't want to toot your horn?
Yeah.
You should be
Honk,
tooting.
honk. So then the sad part for me was after being accepted into Shortridge High School, my mom decided she wanted to marry this man, she thought, and he got this relocation out in Seattle, Washington, and she said, we're moving to Seattle, Washington. So my freshman year of high school, I actually lived in Seattle, Washington.
Okay.
And in Seattle, I got exposed to a whole different kind of a culture. That's where I made a few friends out there, and we went to some of the rock concerts and different things out in Seattle. It was just totally different than living in Indianapolis. And one of the most essential things musically that happened to me in Seattle was, I have to go back to Indianapolis to tell the story of how it relates to Seattle. In 1964, my mom had gone to Chicago with her boyfriend, and we went to the Regal Theater. The Regal Theater was like a landmark of having great R&B shows back in the day.
Okay.
And they had the Temptations, the Vibrations, Junior Walker and the All-Stars, the Contours and the Marvelettes, and Aretha Franklin on this show. And Aretha Franklin stuck out in my mind because there was this lady with this low-cut gown on, and she sat down and played the piano, and I kept asking my mom, who is that lady? And my mom kept telling me that's Reverend C.L. Franklin's daughter. And I'm like, who's Reverend C.L. Franklin, But all night long I was amazed by her. So that was the night she was crowned, as a matter of fact. I was in the audience the night when they crowned her. And so when we moved to Seattle, she was on Dick Clark's American Bandstand.
Oh my God, I haven't heard that name in forever.
What, Dick Clark?
Yeah, the American Bandstand too.
Right. So I was in the room. I ran to her. I said, Mom, there's that lady we saw in Chicago 3 years ago, And she said, yeah. And this is when she did I Never Loved a Man in Respect. And then I was hooked. Aretha Franklin has always been my favorite vocalist and one of my top 2 favorite musical people. So I was just like, okay, this is it. So music, after having seen the Beatles, James Brown, the Temptations, the Jackson 5, all of that from 64 forward. Then I'm living in Seattle. I see Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wills, who had a song called Devil with a Blue Dress On.
Well, I like that song.
Yeah, I saw all that out in Seattle. Then here's Aretha Franklin, now the Queen of Soul. So I'm just totally addicted and baptized in music at this point. And so then when we moved back to Indianapolis, we only stayed out there for 1 year. Then I went to Shortridge, and I fell rightfully into my place of being in the college preparatory high school. And
did your IQ stand out?
Yeah. I was a member of the National Honor Society.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Toot your horn.
Hong Kong. So then, being that Shortridge was a college preparatory high school, there were a lot of Caucasian kids that went there because this was Indianapolis's great experiment.
Okay.
And I used to get permission from my mom to go to some of the doctors and lawyers and Indian chiefs' mansions up on Meridian for their parties that they'd have.
Yeah.
And one particular night, I went to a party at the Streeter's house, Dr. Streeter, and he had an older sister that Tom Streeter, I think, was the guy that I was in class with. He had an older sister named Betsy Streeter. And I asked, could I use their restroom? And they told me it was upstairs. So I went upstairs and I used the restroom. And as I was walking down the hall, I glanced over to my right, and it appeared to be a girl's bedroom, and it was Betsy's bedroom, but I didn't know it. And I saw this fabulous collection of albums sitting on the floor by a record player. So without any permission, I go into her bedroom, sit on the floor, cross my legs, and start thumbing through her record collection.
Yeah,
And then
your IQ didn't click in, not to go in there.
right. So then I saw this album by Jeff Beck called Truth. And I remembered that I had loved the Yardbirds because Jeff Beck had been the guitar player in the Yard. I said, Jeff Beck has an album? I took the record out of the sleeve, put it on her record player, and started playing it. And I guess I was gone from downstairs so long that they kind of missed me. And she came upstairs. She said, "What are you doing in my bedroom? What are you doing with my Jeff Beck album? Why are you going through my albums?" I said, "I'm sorry, but this caught my attention." So after I go home the next day, I asked my mom, could she please take me to G.C. Murphy? That's where I always get my albums from, because they were like back then $4.98. And I said, I've got to have this Jeff Beck album. She looked at me like, who is Jeff Beck? You know,
I was saying the same thing. I'm sitting there. Who is Jeff Beck?
My mom took me out to Glendale Shopping Center,
Yeah.
where there was a G.C. Murphy, and I bought the Jeff Beck Truth album. So my two favorite music people have always been Aretha Franklin and Jeff Beck. Jeff Beck is noted for being one of the greatest guitar players. May he rest in peace. He just passed this January from bacterial meningitis. And it's like one of the greatest things in the world to admire somebody who is iconic and legendary. You get to meet them and you get to have a relationship with them, even though he's English and lived over in England. I'm a black guy, I stuck out every time he would come on tour in America, and I'd go see him, and he knew me, and we talked, and I became friends with his wife, and it's just one of those relationships.
And you say he was one of the best guitar players?
Absolutely.
How does he rank with Jimi Hendrix?
Jimi Hendrix thought he was the best guitar player. When he moved over to England, he wanted to find Jeff Beck.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes. Jeff Beck constantly ranks in the top 10 on all guitar polls, and many people consider him the best. And there's always been a battle between Jimi Hendrix, and Eric Clapton as to who's the best. For me, Jeff is the best, was the best, is the best.
Your IQ proves it, so I'm not going to argue
Same
with
thing
that.
with Aretha, the best, always the best. There will never be another Queen of Soul. So that was like, you take everything that I went through in my childhood growing up in a typical black household, hearing Mahalia, Dinah Washington, Lou Rawls, B.B. King, Bobby Blue Bland, and all of that stuff. Then you combine it with being exposed to the Motown sound of the Temptations, the Four Tops, the Supremes, Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, Martha and the Vandellas, Junior Walker and the All-Stars, the Vibrations, the Contours. Then you take that with the British invasion of the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, the Yardbirds, Herman's Hermits, Manfred Mann, Eric Burden and the Animals, and all of that. Then you take the fact that I also was exposed to Shirley Scott, Cannonball Adderley, Yusef Lateef, Pharoah Sanders, all these jazz people. I'm a walking miscegenation of music.
What's the difference in the craft of music with the British invasion, or Motown, R&B, I guess that's what we called it back then, and jazz?
Well, the British people really study black music. They know more about all the black music artists than American blacks.
Really?
Yes, they when they come over here to America, they want to meet. They wanted, like Jeff Beck wanted to meet Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters and Buddy Guy and B.B. King and all of those kind of people. That was an honor to them. Today's young black kids don't even know anything about the names that I just mentioned.
Right.
I mean, their heroes are Lil Wayne and Gunna and
Hey, I like some Lil Wayne now.
you know, and I'm not throwing hate at any of the people
Right.
that are their heroes. Every generation has the things that they like. But if people are listening to what I'm saying, I'm a miscegenation of it all. And I think that's what's missing with a lot of the young people today.
just getting ready to ask you that.
Only focus in on one type, and they don't have any variation. It's just the same as if you were to feed your kid Burger King every day. How horrible that would be. you need a variety in your life. You have a right to like what you want to like,
But
but
you
at
should-
least be exposed
Yeah.
to the other things, So I've been exposed to it all. I've heard some really crappy music in every genre, and I've heard some really good music in every genre. So I'm at the point in my life now.
Hold that thought. How do you determine really crappy music and really good music?
Trust me, I know.
Your IQ validates it, right?
I know. It can be like, I don't, just because the streets like it doesn't mean that it's good. And you can have a hit, like no shade on the man that sounds like a sheep out to slaughter. Keith Sweat. I have to give Keith credit. He constantly stays on the road. He's the hardest working man in R&B right now. He just got off the tour with the New Edition, but he's out now doing dates all over the place. He's got that catalog of hits, and what
song do we not know by Keith Sweat?
Yeah, we might have hated it, and we thought he sounded like a sheep. But
we was humming it.
They kept playing it over and over and over until I wanna give you my life. You just start, it's just there, you can't do anything about it. So this is what happens with a lot of the young kids of today. Some of this stuff gets drilled in their head, and it's not whether it's really good or not, but it's okay if they like it.
Answer your question real quick.
It's okay,
What made you touched on something with the Keith Sweat, because believe me, I was rolling up and down 38th Street with How Deep Is Your Love and all the other ones, back and forth, wasting gas.
It's a right and a wrong way
That's
to love
right.
somebody. Yeah.
What you said you heard it over and over again. What's the difference between what he did versus what you're trying to educate the young up and coming artists today?
There's this thing called being an outlier or an anomaly. Like we have today, Lizzo, she's an outlier. Lil Nas X, an outlier. Blueface, an outlier. There are people that come along every once in a while, and you just kind of wonder, what on earth made them really click?
Right.
So when you look at all of the R&B singers during the same era of time that Keith Sweat hit, there were certainly people that as singers could sing a lot better. But and the same could apply to Mary J. Blige, because when she first started hitting, she had a big problem with pitch, and some of her producers were taking samples, mixing in with live music, and there would be 3 different keys. She's singing in one, the samples in one, and the live musicians are playing in another. But the stuff felt good to people. It resonated, like the black women that had gone through abuse and troubled relationships and that heartache and pain, they could relate to Mary. And so the songs that Keith Sweat had, like I Give You All My Love, Right and Wrong Way to Love Somebody, I Want Her, those things, they resonated with people. And see, what we have nowadays, we don't have a lot of songs that resonate with people. And this stuff seems like it's just like factory driven, like it's automation, it's too much. There's no heart and soul.
What do you think made Mariah Carey so extraordinary in the brief time that she was? No disrespect to her, but I really didn't, and I'm not a vocalist, so I don't know, but the high-pitched screaming, I thought that was cool, but I really wasn't resonating to any of her music.
Mariah is, and I can't throw any shade at Mariah because that I have a piece of her big hit, We Belong Together, and I thank you. I was able to buy a lot of furniture and stuff off of that. Love you, Mimi. But I could say that she sort of was an anomaly as well. When she came,
what was her click?
When she came along, the first thing, people couldn't tell whether she was black or white. That was confusing to people. And she had these tunes that were very well crafted and hit that commercial spot on people. And they played her like crazy. Whether you really liked it or not, you heard it all the time. And then when she would do the whistle notes, that's what you call that she does, they'll be like, oh my God.
Yeah,
so,
that's what I said.
when she whistle noted, it was over. She can't dance a lick. It's like, you're just totally floored by the whistle note and then the crafting of the material. There are musicians and people that can really sing, like Layla Hathaway can really sing, but she's never had a hit. You know
Why?
why?
And you're, I mean, I know it's a hard thing to
Probably it's
answer, but
because she's goes over the head of the regular commercial listener.
okay.
If you listen to commercial radio, many of the songs are in the same beats per minute to play behind each other, and there's a similarity between them. When you put Layla Hathaway in there with that mix of songs, it sticks out like a sore thumb. It doesn't sound the same. She's a little too good for commercial radio.
Tell me, since we just mentioned some of these artists and the legends, what are some of the who are some of the legends that you've learned from, that you've worked with, and what lessons did you get from working with these individuals?
I've worn so many hats in this music game. Like when I was in high school, I was a journalist and wrote for the school paper, and I did a music or an entertainment column in high school. And I would go to concerts and interview a lot of the rock stars of that day. Like I interviewed the Grassroots and Paul Revere and the Raiders and people like that that were really hitting in the late 60s. Then when I went off to college, I did the same thing. And I would go interview the rock stars like Johnny Winter, Edgar Winter, Rick Derringer, the Ides of March, Blood, Sweat, and Tears. I also interviewed B.B. King, Billy Jackson, Eddie Harris. I've been up close and personal. I have a list yay long.
Yeah, I saw that list
of all the people that I've dealt with. So I've learned a little bit from all of them. I mean, I've gotten some incredible stories from some of the people of some of their struggles and what they've gone through. Then I become really good friends with some people that were not legends when I started being their friend, but they have turned into being legends.
Give me an example of the ones that you're talking about.
Babyface.
Tell me the journey there real quick.
I met him when he was a teenager. I was doing some dealings with his older brother, Melvin Edmonds, may he rest in peace, who was also became a member of the group After Seven. And I had to take some material out to their home on the northwest side of Indianapolis for Melvin to learn some songs in this band that we were doing a couple of special shows. And that's when he sort of introduced me to his younger brother, Kenny, at that time. Little could I have thought 3 years later I'd be his manager in a group called Manchild. It's just like, I remember that little boy. And the week that Kenny graduated from high school is the week that he joined Manchild. And I had to go out and meet with his mom, and she said some very choice words to me about I better look after her son because we were going out of town and stuff like that. And I'll never forget that conversation. I knew that it was something very special about him. Early on, I could see that he had the gift, he could write, and it was really inside of him. I remember in 1980, we were at his mom's home looking at Saturday Night Live, and Aretha Franklin was on Saturday Night Live performing, and he said, I want to write something for her one day. And who could have thought that some 12, 13 years later, he would be writing and producing for her.
Wow.
Somebody could look at that as he speak it into existence. Many of the people that he dreamed of meeting, he ended up meeting them, and not only meeting them, but he got to write and produce them. So that's watching somebody that you've known from being a kid turn into one of the most iconic and famous songwriters of all time. Who else is legendary? There's the leader of Manchild, Reggie Griffin. He's legendary. Most of that music on Sugar Hill Records, the Sugar Hill Gang, Apache, and all that stuff. He played the instruments on all that stuff. He played all the instruments on Chaka Khan's version of I Feel For You. He even wrote the rap that Melly Mel did. There's Midnight Star. Your
list goes on, but out of that list, what is the one that not Babyface? That's out of the other ones outside of Babyface. Which one stands out the most that had to deal with that you saw really struggle, but you used your talents to help them. Because let's get real, it's not easy in this game.
Well, I could curse Reggie Griffin and thank him because I was a fledgling rock and roll singer, and we used to be managed by a rip-off con artist manager way back in the day. And I went to see the Average White Band at the Indiana Convention Center in 1975 in September. And lo and behold, the opening act was this group called Manchild. And I remember looking up there and said, oh, there's that boy Reggie Griffin that I know a little bit, and we were managed by the same guy. So I went up and spoke to them after the show was over, and Reggie kind of asked me what was I doing now. And I said, well, I had just formed a new rock funk band with a cousin of mine out of Danville, Illinois. But after seeing you guys, I'm throwing in the towel. We can't hang with you. Y'all bad. He said, well, here, take my number. Do me a favor and call me tomorrow. There's something I want to talk to you about. So I kind of went home and thought, what in the world does he want to talk to me about?
Right.
So when I called him, he said, I got this idea about, you joining the band and playing Briefcase. And I thought, what is that? So they were getting ready to play at this place called Gordy's Lounge up at 38th and Sherman Drive. They were doing a residency there for a week.
Okay.
So I went up to Gordy's Lounge to see them, and this was like not from them being the opening act on the Average White Band show. This was a night where they do 3 sets, and I got to see them in full force. They were just really bad. So they told me to hang back after the night was over, and you got the cleanup crew and everybody putting up stuff. I'm the only person sitting in there besides the band who's gone downstairs, and I'm like, what is going on here? Then they came up and they all surrounded me. I thought they were getting ready to jump me. They said, we just went downstairs and voted, and you're our manager now. And I was like, I didn't audition for being a manager, but that's what he meant by playing Briefcase.
Did you have any experience at that time other than?
Well, he knew of my abilities because I had booked another band that he was in called the Soul Continentals at my college on a show, and they knew about my journalism, and he was like extolling about, you're the only person I know at your age that knows business and knows that kind of thing. And I would do writings about the business of the music, so I was already, I guess we're going to talk about that IQ, I was already there, I remember when I started managing Manchild, I told him, I said, well, I appreciate you all wanting me to do this, but we've got a problem. I said, because I'm already booked on a flight to go and visit a friend of mine out in South Carolina, because when I used to live in San Antonio, Texas, when my dad was stationed in the Air Force, he was friends with Sergeant Richburg, and Sergeant Richburg had some sons and daughters, and I became friends with them, and their family moved back to South Carolina, where they were from after his journey in the Air Force was over. So I was going to go visit my boy that, stayed in South Carolina, because I'd never been to South Carolina. So I was like, well, y'all got these couple of gigs coming up while I'm going to be gone, and I don't know if I can take the responsibility. They said, it'll be okay. Just call these club owners and introduce yourself and tell them that you're manager now. And you can designate one of our roadies to just handle some of the little stuff in your absence. Man, the club owners did not like me. Because when I called them, I was saying we're going to have contracts now with contract writers, and they called Reggie and said, who is that British proper talking MF, or is he white? What is, and they were like, well, no, we want to do business. Reggie said, hey. And I told him, I said, there's a new sheriff in town now.
So what made Manchild different from the artists that you're working with now, as far as bands and the way they structure things? You had to see something about them, and they had to see something about you. What is different from there to now?
Well, Reggie Griffin was an immense talent. He played saxophone, he played guitar, he played keyboards. He can even play trumpet and play drums and bass and play harmonica. He plays everything. He's a musical virtuoso. So I was very impressed with that. Plus, he was a Jeff Beck fan. He was a wizard.
Oh, he was your buddy now.
Yeah, he was influenced by Hendrix, Santana, John McLaughlin and Jeff Beck. So he was a guitar player all rolled in one then, and I loved the guitar, so he could. I remember one day he could play back the entire Jeff Beck Blow by Blow album. And I went up to his room and he said, oh my God, this dude is just amazing. So with Manchild, they were very intense. They put on a show. I was able, through my cousin Charles Williams, may he rest in peace, who worked in the mayor's office at that time. We were able to get a Manchild Day from Mayor Hudnut. I was able to take them from the hood and make them become a household name. And so I've used that approach throughout my career. When I work with artists, I try to expand their brand, expand their horizons. If I see something in them that I think can work, I try to take it and expand on it. There are times that I pass on people because I don't see that there's really anything I can do for them. You know, there are some people that have it, and there's some people that just don't have it.
Has it ever happened to you that you passed on an artist and they wind up actually succeeding?
I can't really think of anybody that I passed on that has succeeded. I can think of some people that we fell out along the way, that they no longer work with me and they went backwards.
We can mention their names.
I can think of some people that it's happened that way, that they probably thought the grass was greener on the other side,
yeah.
but they didn't get that real green grass on the other side. I really can't think of anybody that I passed on that really blew all the way up, because I'm a little picky. I'm not really a people person. I'm a true to form moody Capricorn, and I'm very
Could you repeat that again? Because I was just saying that to some of your proteges. I'm like, okay, he's very stern.
Yeah, I'm not a people person. I am really an introvert, and I don't indulge in trivial bull crap.
Yeah.
You know, that's not the kind of guy that I am. I don't drink liquor. I don't smoke tobacco. I've never tried it. I've never tried marijuana. I'm not the kind of person that is impacted by what the crowd likes. And I tend to gravitate towards people that will be in my personal life that are like that as well. That was one of the things that made Kenny Babyface Edmonds and I click. We used to come from Indianapolis and go over to Cincinnati to Kings Island all the time and just ride the beast over and over till we were dizzy. You know, we would do that kind of thing, and we would go see movies because, see, he didn't drink and he didn't smoke, he didn't do all that kind of thing. See, a lot of people don't realize that the seeds you plant and the way you take care of that seed will determine the crops you grow and what kind of crops you will have. A lot of the musicians that were really good in Indianapolis back in the day, from the Manchild days forward, were good musicians, but they had baggage. They had a lot of kids by a lot of different women. They had child support issues, or some of them may have had drug abuse problems or alcohol problems. And Kenny never had any of that. That's why he was able to have a leg up on all the other people that sometimes they hate on him because of his success and feel like he should come back to Indianapolis and wave a magic wand and help everybody. But when we moved, I helped him drive to LA. Oh my God, the worst thing in the world, that drive. When he moved out there in 1985, I think it was, he didn't have baggage. No bastard children, no drug problems, none of those things that I talked about. He was able to pack up and move out there, and look at what had happened for him. Some of the people that have talent, they never were able to get up and move like that because they already had 4 and 5 kids. And you can't have a bunch of kids and really do music, because it's just not really going to work.
You now still in business, and now you evolve with the time. You have a entourage of young talent. Tell the viewers about that. We're live. This is Under the Beast Crayton Show. Subscribe, like, share. Uncle Sid Johnson, Jamz, is on the show. We're going to be here for another 10 minutes. It's not a rush episode today. I'm privileged to have him in here. It's Black Music Month, and
Yes,
we're
the
gonna
last day of Black
the last
Music.
day. So
Yes. Let's get it in.
let's get it in. So tell me about the young generation here and what you're bringing to them, man, and what makes these individual artists that is now up under the MECAP
Yeah.
independent artists. Like, look, I got that.
MECAP is a record label and a management and a consulting company and a production company.
You tell them about it.
Yeah, so it's musical, entertainment, consulting, and production. That's what the acronym stands for. So I have certain artists that are under my brand that I manage, and they're part of my label. And I have certain people that I'm their entertainment consultant. And then I have people that I just sort of advise. I believe that my responsibility is to have these younger people around me, and they be like a sponge and soak up the knowledge, because I think I have to give back and pass it on. And what I try to do, really, there was a time when I retired from this because I was dealing with this rap group out of Georgia, and they just drove me out of this game.
Do I know the rap group?
Yeah.
Okay.
They just like, it's in my bio. They took me through some changes, and I just thought, no, I don't want to do this anymore. And Gino Shelton, who's my good friend, who used to be on WTLC, and he's one of Indy's top concert promoters, and Lucky Smith, who's the co-owner of 24/7 magazine and has DJs United Radio. They convinced me to come from Cincinnati. I stay in Cincinnati now, even though I'm from Indianapolis. They convinced me to come from Cincinnati to be on a panel that they were having for Indiana Black Expo in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
And when I came, for some reason, I was the star of the panel because, I guess it's an IQ thing, So I was disseminating this wonderful knowledge that made all of the singers and rappers that were there want to gravitate towards me. And I was just trying to get out of there.
Right.
And they surrounded me when I came off the stage, and people were rapping for me, and people were singing for me. And I heard this one young singer, and he sounded really good. And I said, I think I would like to take you in the studio.
He brought that youth back, that sparkle in your eyes.
Yeah, and I was like, I think you got something. So we did some things, and we charted some songs on him. I got him to open some shows for various people. I introduced him to Babyface and Daryl Simmons and Kevon Edmonds of After Seven. When that's what brought me back into it, and I thought, okay, I'll start dealing with these young people again. And then we had a lot of rappers that started coming to me. Rap is really not my main forte because of the language of rap. So in 2014 at my label, I made a policy because this group that I was telling you about that took me through some changes.
I read your bio.
They had some unbelievable language in their songs. They were very good rappers, and they were very clever, and some of it was comical to listen to, but so potty mouth. And I remember we were out on a promotional tour, and we went by my mom's house before she passed, and she said, "Bring the boys in so I can hear their music." And I thought, oh, Mom, I don't think so. So she prepared a fruit basket and some candy and gave. She said, I like LL Cool J. And I said, Mom, this ain't nothing like LL Cool J. And that was sticking in my head, and I was thinking, all of my life, all like Man Child and all these other bands used to practice in my mother's basement. She'd cook for them and everything. And now I'm dealing with some music that I can't even let my mother hear. Yeah. So it took me a few years before I finally weaned myself, because sometimes, when you make a little money from something, you can you kind of okay, I'm making money from this, even though I don't really like it. Then you have to get to the point where if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And in 2014, I got all of my rap artists on a conference call together, and I told them we have a new policy. You can no longer say the N-word, call women female dogs, call sexual genitalia by alley terms, and say anything against anybody's sexual preference or slog on anybody's religion or height or weight. We really do something different here. No parental advisory stickers. And this is not throwing shade at any of you. If you can roll with this new policy, stay on the conference line. If you can't roll with it, I say I wish you well. Just hang up and get off. And nobody got off. So from 2014 now, this is 2023. We're 9 years into being clean lyrics at MECAP, and it will stay that way. And trust me, I have had people that do street dealings that have offered me huge amounts of bag to work with them. Say, come on, Unc, you know you can do it. I'll give you this. I've had offers of $5,000 and more to, even consult and help with people that do. I said, no. I said, because if I work with you, this is not personal, but if I work with you, then the people that I deal with in the industry, they will know that I did that for the bag, and therefore I will have compromised my principle.
How many people do you know that actually do things for the bag in this industry? Because we talked off the record.
Is there a numeric number that could even describe that?
Let me rephrase it. How much money does it take to really to be a number one hit?
$1 million.
So somebody would do whatever to get that.
There are people that have done whatever, however, to get on. There are some people that need knee braces at this point.
This is the Andre the Beast Crayton show. It's rated R. How hard is it really? And how important this is? We're now using this new word. And explain to the viewers the difference. We're now using a new word in the music industry called independent artists. What happened that we got to this point? And what's the advantages and the disadvantages?
Okay. When I first got in the music business, there were 9 standalone major labels. Now there are 3. Sony Music Entertainment, Warner, and Universal. And they have a few subsidiaries, but those are the people that write the checks. So, having said that, with streaming being the way that people hear their music for the most part nowadays, the major labels no longer have the hold that they used to have. There's more talent, there's more artistry than what they can handle. And they are not going to do a deal with you unless you have blown yourself up into the smithereens as an independent artist. In other words, they don't do development anymore like they used to when it was 6 or 7 of them, past the days of there being 9. So, having said that, the only way people can really get their musical talents, the output there now, is you have to do it yourself. And the difference between a major label and an independent artist is independent artists, they got to dig in their own pocket and do it. And you can go as far as your pocket can take you. That's the truth. You see, when you were at the major label, you're counting on somebody else's pocket to take you there. And you don't make any money at a major label until their pocket has been reimbursed.
So people didn't understand the record labels give you money in advance.
Yes, just like if you go to the mortgage company and get a house, or go to the bank and get a loan on a car. You say it's my car, but it's not really your car, because guess what? If you don't make those payments, you know what's going to happen. It's going to get repossessed. So what do the major labels do? They own your masters.
Then why are these the rappers that we see on the social media riding around in Lamborghinis, flying in helicopters? Rick Ross just bought a Lamborghini boat.
Well, some of those people, if you're talking about a music video, then some of that stuff is rented stuff for the purpose of that video. They don't really own it.
Okay.
Someone like Rick Ross, he has amassed a great amount of wealth, so he does own that. But I guarantee you, as we sit here talking on the Andre the Beast Crayton show, that every music artist that is super wealthy did not attain their wealth from being in music alone. They own other businesses.
Okay.
Because, number one, music royalties have always been pishy. They've never been that great. It wasn't until the Janet Jackson, Aerosmiths, the Led Led Zeppelin's, the Michael Jacksons started getting $2 an album off of the $9.98 list price, that there were any royalties that were even looked at as respectable. I mean, you go back to the TLC days when they sued LaFace Records. I mean, they're talking about maybe 6 or 8 cents per album sold. That's nothing. But nowadays, people, they want a 50-50 deal. Mm-hmm. And then there's the 360 deal, which I don't like 360 deals.
Why?
Because 360 deals means that that label is involved in every aspect of your income source. Back in the day, the major record label only was involved in your record sales, not in your personal appearances, or some people call it your show money, not in your merchandise, your caps, your t-shirts, your frisbees, your keychains. A 360 deal means that you as an artist, you didn't have anything anyway money-wise, so that's right. Why you had to make the deal. So they're, okay, yeah, we buy you keychains and frisbees and baseball caps and t-shirts, and we'll get you some shows, but in the 360 deal, we split it 50-50, but you still have to pay me back for the investment I made and all that I did for you. So it's like, some people are like, well, at least in a 360 deal, you know, we're making something, but you still owe them something.
Yeah.
So, you know, and then and they definitely want half of your publishing, so they're going to own half of that copyright, you know, and these are things that you have to know. And I find that a lot of young people that make this music and put it on SoundCloud and what have you, they're not getting their stuff properly mixed. It's not mastered. They don't belong to a PRO. You say, what is a PRO? That's a performing rights organization. That's BMI, ASCAP, and CSAC. They don't get their music encoded with MediaBase. So therefore, some of them even get some kind of airplay on one of the PROs, and they never get a check, and they'll say, well, you know, my record played on the radio or played here or there, and if I never got a check, I said, is it encoded? They look at me like I was speaking Russian. What is encoded? Well, an encoding helps your record pick up a detection, and that's the only way the PRO knows that you're getting spins right. In order for you to get a performance royalty check. So if your record is not encoded, you will not make a pauper's penny.
How important is it to have a manager or have someone to really watch your back? Because once again, we're using the word independent artist, but you just had a function here a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. How was it received? And what's I know this is like hypothetical question, but how many people actually succeed? If you had 100 on the top of the scale, how many of that 100 is going to succeed?
There's a figure that I've learned in my research that only 25% of the records that are released in America have ever hit pay dirt. The other 75%, they get dropped from the labels and they're a tax write-off.
Wow. Because
there's like a lot. There are some 65,000 records. We call everything records nowadays, even though there's not wax, but there's some 65,000 pieces of music uploaded to Spotify every day.
That's a lot of music.
That's a lot of music. And people's attention span
is like this.
Yeah, and see, back in the day, when there was a physical thing, you had the cover to be able to look, especially the female demographic. You're not going. That's why Betsy was so upset, because I'm touching her album. That's like mine. You don't. You know how that is. Mm-hmm. Like, imagine somebody like an L. DeBarge or Al B. Sure or who else is a heartthrob artist back in the day? Johnny Mathis. I'm just pulling names out of that. Somebody was a heartthrob artist. That's personal to them to hold on to that physical piece. You know, nowadays you're streaming it. You can pay for $10 a month. For $10 a month.
I like when your phone goes off. That means you're still on the clock.
For $10 a month, you can listen to hundreds of thousands of pieces of music. As Clive Davis and Quincy Jones say, people are renting music now.
Yeah.
So rather than buying music. So why would I pay $1 for a Damon Carl single when I can pay $10 a month and listen to Led Zeppelin,
countless
Bon Jovi, what's his name, Giveon. I can listen to The Weeknd. I can listen to Babyface. I can listen to Aretha. I can
Lil
listen
Wayne.
to I can listen to anybody I want to listen to, and not only, and then I can listen to Damon Carl over and
Yeah.
over and over, because you can keep on listening over and over and over. And if you have the right type of ability in your engineering skills, I can run a stereo patch cord and record his thing and put it in my computer. It's the same as if I bought it. And if I'm around Wi-Fi, I don't even have to do a streaming thing. I can go on YouTube and hear every piece of music on their audio.
So before we wrap up, the topic.
Hold on, let me say this.
Okay,
again.
go ahead.
0.0003 cents for a stream. I've had some artists that have had 100,000 streams on their record. That's worth about $350 only. But if people had to still buy a physical single, they'd make $100,000.
What's the end game for you? You're a legend. You have great artists. Which when we close out, we're gonna talk about the artists. But you're a legend. But what's the end game? You got so much knowledge. I was at the event. I saw the individuals soaking it up. What's your end game here? What do you want to leave behind as the legend?
I want people to say, he tried to tell us. He tried to import the knowledge to us so that we could put ourselves in a better place. I don't know how much longer I'm going to do this, because none of us know when our clock is up. And sometimes I get really frustrated, especially when I deal with artists and they act a fool and I feel like they are being disrespectful and disloyal after all I've done for them. But I still think I got a few more years that I want to do this. I mean, I got this one that's sitting over here that you interviewed earlier. Mm-hmm. Oh, sometimes, I want to get a baseball bat and hit a home run upside his head. But most of the time, he's okay. If I could just get him to recognize the importance. And for those of you that don't know, I'm talking about Damon Carl with a K. If I could just get him to recognize that people don't want to hear from me as much as that they want to hear from him on social media. Right. Because I promote all of my artists, but it's better if the artist engages.
I'm glad you said it, because I'm like that. I feel special if they reach back out and I respond to them. Mm-hmm. It's a heck of a lot different than going through a manager or.
Well, let's not be deceptive to some of the A-League people. They are not the ones running their social media.
Right.
You're dealing with their manager or their publicist. And sometimes you can tell by the grammar as to whether it's really the artist doing it or whether it's one of their handlers doing it. But if people will feel more inclined to want to support you if they feel like you are taking it serious, it's got to be as important to you as it is to them. Because think about it like this with music. Okay, you're asking people to invest in you.
Right.
And most of these people, especially in a time where we have inflation in this economy and people live paycheck to paycheck, you want me to invest in you to help you become famous and rich, and I'm having trouble buying eggs and chicken and putting gas in my car? Mm-hmm. There's some choice language I could use to give you an expression of what them people are saying. You already know. So you've got to find some kind of way to where it feels special to them, to where they'll say, you know what? He's worth it for me to spend $1 on his single and download it.
Right.
Or he's worth it for me to go ahead and do a paid subscription on Apple, Tidal, or Spotify so he can make them 0.003 cents as opposed to listening for free. And if you don't do that, then you're going to lose the game. And the final thing I want to say about that is you got to realize the audience that you're trying to catch their attention. The majority of people that have accounts are the female demographic and the LGBTQ plus, et cetera, because those alphabets keep changing. But those are the two communities, the two demographics that support music the most. If you're trying to make music for the hard ankle brothers of the hood, you are losing the battle, because they do not have any streaming accounts. They don't know. Most of them don't even have a credit card or debit card, so there's no way they can do that anyway. They're going to go somewhere and walk around and go, is the Wi-Fi free here? And listen to you on YouTube. So know what your end game is and what you're trying to do. Because I'm here and I'm accessible if you need some help, and I do not charge a lot of money for doing general consultation to help you get it out there. But if your stuff is explicit, do not hit me up, because I'm not going to compromise.
How can the viewers hit you up?
I'm on Instagram as, well, first of all, MECAP Music has an Instagram page, MECAP Music. Then I have an Instagram page, which right down today is public, but that could change. It's Uncle Jamz with a Z and an underscore. That's UNCLEJAMZ_. And then I have a Facebook band musician page, Uncle Jamz, but there's no underscore, UNCLEJAMZ. MECAP has a business page on Facebook, MECAP Music and Entertainment. That's MECAP Music and Entertainment. And those are the ways that you can hit me, because if you hit me on those things, you can find an email address. And if you're not in my priority folder, you'll probably go to spam, because if you start hitting out with sup or what's up my end, you know, that ain't happening. I'm not hey, I'm not sup, you know. You got to come at me the right way. So, because I'm about my business, I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do and take care of mine.
Right.
You got to take care of yours.
Before we wrap up, who are some of the artists that you have up under your company?
My current roster would be Damon Carl, Sassé, Stars of the Bazaar, Nutbush, Kelsey Marie. Damon, am I forgetting somebody? 12. 12 was, how could I forget 12? He was my first artist that I signed. And sorry about that, Brian, but you know how it is. You're loved and you're well thought of. You were number one. And those are the main artists right now that are under the management and label wing. Then I have consulting artists that I deal with. That would be JB, Visualmania. There's somebody else. Anyway, if you go to the MECAP, yeah, you'll find these kind of things. That's why I hate when I do phone interviews or these interviews. I always leave a name out and say, "Oh, you didn't say me." Oh, I forgot about my nephew Candid out of Arkansas, originally from Indianapolis. And we're going to be doing another situation. We're going to be doing it in Atlanta in August,
Okay.
Where we're going to have artists come and appear. And I have other people that are just.
It's just so many.
Damon had a question that he had wanted you to ask me.
Damon, what was the question?
He wanted to know was I going to.
Are you planning on adding more artists?
One of my dearest friends from the past was on vacation in Tampa, Florida.
Okay.
And he ran into a guy there that was a singer. And this guy never brings anybody to my attention because he knows how I am.
Right.
And he said, I ran into this guy and I think he would be perfect for you. And I told him about you, and he said, I'm going to send you a couple of links of what he gave me. And he said, you can decide. He said, but I think he was a decent guy and I think you might be interested. And I said, okay. I kind of poo-pooed it at first, like, okay, yeah, I'll listen. So when I got an idle moment, I forgot another artist, T. Hill out of Sacramento, California. Sorry about that, T. It came to me. He's another one of my managerial label artists. Okay, so as my guy kept hitting me up. He's a retired Air Force guy, and I think he does some consulting work for the Air Force. And he said, did that guy hit you up? I said, not yet. He said he seemed so interested. He said, I'm surprised he hasn't hit you. He said, let me call that dude and see what's up with him.
Right.
Kind of that military get rough with him. He said he apologized for me that he hadn't hit you up. He said he didn't want to hit you up until he came back from vacation because he's on vacation. He said he promises he's going to hit you up. I said, okay. So he just happened to hit me yesterday. My friend did. He said, did he ever hit you up? I said, no, not yet. He said, okay, this is going to be the last time I reach out to this guy. So he said, I sent him an email on June the 1st and he didn't respond. He said, maybe I put one wrong alphabet in it. So he probably spelled Jamz with the S on the end
Right.
instead of with the Z, because I never got it. And he realized this, and he's very articulate and very nice and college educated. And he felt so bad because he thought I wasn't interested in him when he sent the email, but he didn't hit the Z, he hit an S. So we had our first conversation yesterday, and it really went well. So in response to Damon Carl's question, there is a possibility I might be dealing with this male vocalist out of Tampa, Florida. And he's taking guitar lessons, as a matter of fact. This guy is a little bit different than your regular R&B. He's a kind of a person that's visionary. He likes The Weeknd, he likes Daniel Caesar, he likes Giveon, and another artist that I never heard of that I can't think of his name. He wants to be like a Prince person. He doesn't want to be pigeonholed into one genre of music. He wants to do a more universal sound, and I had to give him a reality check and tell him, as long as you black and you walk the face of this earth, if you don't make some music that appeals to your kind first, you cannot come out of the box as an independent artist and appeal to the other ethnic groups and other races.
Right.
It doesn't work like that. He understood that, and he got that. But he's got some really nice, and you talking about a vocal range, he's really good. And he's not going to be a person, if we work together, that's going to have a problem, because his mother works for Delta Airlines and he can fly free anywhere he needs to go.
Yeah, you got no problem.
And he was so sad when he found out that I was hoping that he would have contacted me so he could have performed at my conference 2 weeks ago. And he said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I hit the wrong email address." So he's going to try to get things in gear to do the thing in Atlanta. So we're going to talk on the 4th of July to put everything in motion. He says he wants to do it, but I still have to, keep on filling him out a little bit more, because this guy could be quite a little bit different. He's definitely got a vibe about him.
It's like you got your work cut out for you.
Yeah, he can sing. And people are constantly bringing people to me, Damon. I mean, most of the time, I'm not really interested, or I feel like they may be okay, but it might take away from some of the concentration that I need to put into T Hill or to Damon or to
you don't want
Toy,
to
or to
overextend your
Sassy or to
baggage.
Kelsey Marie, the Stars of the Bazaar, to Nutbush, Then I work in conjunction with Zoomies, which is Mr. Bill and that whole crew of people. So I got a whole lot on my plate. So if you coming to me, you got to be about business, because I'm not going to let you waste my time. The days of letting artists waste my time, those days are long gone and over. I have some artists right now that I haven't personally dropped them, but they dropped themselves because of lack of communication. So you cannot not hit me up for 6 months and then I get a happy birthday, and I'm like, where have you been all this time?
Right.
I'm not going to be more interested in this than you are.
Right.
I have, excuse me, honk honk. I've got BMI awards. I've got Billboard awards. I've got Grammy awards. I've got mayoral plaques. I've got gold and platinum records. I've been there.
Right.
And back. So, hello.
Before we wrap up, leave the audience with something memorable.
Old school rules with new school tools. There's 3 things you must know about this thing that we do. First, there's the music. Then there's the business of the music. And then there's the industry that affects the music. And the 3 things are totally different. And if you don't have them all working hand in hand, you're going to be like a car stuck in mud with the wheels spinning and you're going nowhere.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have just heard from the legend, the general, giving you new school, old school knowledge. Use it. This is Black History Month, and I am honored to have featured on the Andre the Beast Crayton Show this whole entire week extraordinary musical artist by ways of the man himself, Uncle See It, Jim Johnson on the Andre the Beast Crayton show. That was off the chain. Woo. And we ran out of dollars. I don't know what that one went out. That thing was still going. I don't know how much time was on there. Okay, so now let's do the teaser.
Okay.
Yeah, what I was trying to do was like cut it because I think when we do the stream, it only gives us so much stream. So I wanted to be able to get it, but I edited it. It'll look good. Okay. On this episode of the Andre the Beast Crayton Show with Yolanda M. Smith, we're talking with the general, the legend, the artist, the producer, Mr. Music himself, Mr. See It, Uncle Jamz Johnson.
Thank you very much for having me, Mr. Andre the Beast Crayton. I want to leave this with you all. You want to tune into this, or you might want to just go ahead and tune yourself out of the music game, because we're going to be kicking some knowledge that you need to have.
That and more on the Andre the Beast Crayton Show. That was on the chain. We did that in one take.
Well, that's because I'm a pro at doing this. I mean, I used to be on the radio in college. I don't play.
Give me 1 second.
I don't play.
Let me make sure this